The Supreme Court just delivered the most consequential ruling on children's rights in a generation, and the entire progressive establishment is melting down right before our eyes. Come on in, gang, one and all. Welcome back to the channel. This is huge. Many of you, I think, have heard, but in a historic 6-3 decision, the highest court in the land has affirmed that 72% of Americans, what we already believe, children should be protected from irreversible medical procedures that they cannot possibly legally consent to. But here's what makes this decision truly extraordinary. The ruling does not just protect vulnerable minors, it systematically dismantles the entire ideological infrastructure that has been pushing experimental treatments on children for years. And ironically, within minutes of that decision, Vice President J.D. Vance was suspended from the far-left liberal social media platform Blue Sky, simply for quoting Justice Thomas's devastating concurrence that exposed the bad arguments and substandard science behind these procedures and advocacies. So this isn't just a legal victory. It's the beginning of a complete cultural paradigm shift in how America protects its children in rejecting all things woke. So specifically, this involves the Supreme Court's decision in a case called United States versus Skrmetti. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, concluded that the state of Tennessee and their ban on transgender surgeries for minors does not violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which is what the trans activists were arguing. The Tennessee law prohibits doctors from prescribing things like puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and conducting surgeries to minors, procedures that carry lifelong consequences, including sterilization and other significant harms. What makes this ruling so powerful is its clarity. The court recognized that this case clarifies with it the weight of fierce scientific and policy debates about the safety, efficacy, and propriety of medical treatments in what they call an evolving field. But rather than imposing their own preferences, the 6 justices properly returned this decision to the people, their elected representatives, and the democratic process. That's actually written in the decision itself. In other words, ideologues and so-called experts, self-appointed experts, do not get to tell the people of Tennessee how to run their state and how to take care of their kids. It's the people, right, the consent of the governed, who make that decision ultimately, not a managerial class of self-proclaimed experts. The implications for this decision are absolutely enormous. If you don't know, nearly half the states in our nation, over 24, have similar laws, and all of them can now confidently enforce protections for minors. Now, keep in mind, if the 3 liberals on the court had their way, the ideology of trans activism would have been imposed from above on the entirety of our nation. Again, that's key. An ideology, not science, not civil rights, not facts. A brutal leftist ideology would have been imposed upon the nation. And that's exactly what Justice Clarence Thomas directly noted in his 23-page concurrence. Thomas did not mince words. Does he ever? He said that these so-called experts who argued on behalf of the pro-trans position have built their medical determinations on what he calls, quote, conceitedly weak evidence, and have surreptitiously compromised their medical recommendations to achieve political ends. Gang, that is not just a legal opinion. That is a comprehensive indictment of an entire medical establishment that has abandoned scientific rigor in favor of ideological conformity. You are not scientists. That's exactly what Thomas said. You are not scientists. You are ideologues. Now, obviously, the legacy media is not happy about this. Obviously so. I mean, we talk a lot on this channel about this. The legacy media is governed by an ideology called progressive realism, which believes that the arc of history inevitably bends in the direction of the liberal left. It's basically based on Frank Fukuyama's end of history thesis from the early 1990s that basically argued that all the political and economic systems of the world were inevitably converging into liberal globalism. Okay. So the media has, for decades now, dedicated itself to the task of supposedly exposing the political right as always attempting to get in the way of history, because history always bends, the arc of history always bends in the direction of the political left. So this is why, for the legacy media, the Democrats are always assumed innocent until proven guilty. All the while, Republicans are always assumed guilty until proven innocent, which, of course, given their standards of proof, is near impossible. But the legacy media operates from the assumption that all things leftist are good, while all things rightist are bad. And so the reaction to this ruling has been nothing short of revealing, just exposing their complete abandonment of journalistic standards in favor of naked advocacy. Major outlets like the Washington Post, the New York Times, NBC News, even Scientific American immediately framed the decision as a major setback for transgender rights. A setback. You see, that's the progressive realism. History inevitably moves in the direction of left-wing causes, and so this is a setback for the natural movement of history, even though 80% of the nation is opposed to this. And that's not an exaggeration. It's a round off. A recent poll found that 72% of Americans, including 58% of Democrats, a clear majority, support laws preventing children from undergoing these procedures. This issue is the very opposite of polarizing. That's how the media keeps trying to present it. This is a polarizing it. No, it's not. If anything, it's an 80-20. It's a rare example of massive national consensus. And we've talked about this media phenomenon known as narrative laundering. You remember that? That's the term media analysts, scholars use. Narrative laundering. It's a process by which false information gets legitimized through repetition rather than verification. It's basically the old adage, say the same thing over and over again, and a majority will start believing it's true, even though it's not. It's a consensus bias. It's the assumption that if most people are saying it and believe it, it must be true. That's narrative laundering. And the legacy media has been relying on that technique for decades now. But of course, the problem today is no one's listening to them. No one cares what they have to say after their blatant out and out lying about Joe Biden and covering up for his failing cognitive condition. The legacy media has completely shattered whatever was left of their already failed credibility. But speaking of not listening, perhaps the most revealing reaction on social media came from the ultra left-wing Blue Sky, the woke echo chamber social media platform created for liberals fleeing Elon Musk's X. But Vice President J.D. Vance created an account and he posted a screenshot of Justice Thomas's wonderful concurrence, noting that Thomas argued that many of our so-called experts have used bad arguments and substandard science to push experimental therapies on our youth, all for ideological reasons. And within literally minutes, I kid you not, within minutes, Vance's account was freaking suspended. Now, they did later reinstate his account with claims that it was a mistake. It was a snafu of automated systems flagging the account. Obviously, the timing was beyond suspicious at best. No matter, I mean, Blue Sky is financially faltering. I don't know if they're not making any money. It's a pathetic platform with no future, just a bunch of white women with cats, basically. Yeah, white single women with cats arguing and screaming on there. But that suspension of the sitting vice president perfectly demonstrates the intellectual bankruptcy of the progressive movement. They're completely unable to engage with substantive arguments and resort to nothing more than censorship and personal attacks, all in the name of defending democracy, of course. Unfortunately for them, this Supreme Court ruling represents more than just a legal victory. It signals a profound political realignment on an issue that crosses traditional partisan lines. We talked about this many times on this channel, but it's very important that we get this because it's so key to understanding this cultural and political realignment that's happening in our nation today. But remember, virtually every woke issue out there, everyone, it doesn't matter which one, every woke issue is an 80-20 issue. And we can see how that happens in real time. It's because wokeness always ends up splitting the left, all the while uniting the right. Wokeness splits the left and unites the right. Any woke issue only garners at best about 50% support on the political left, which means then when you take the population aggregate, no woke issue can possibly get more than 25% overall support at best in the nation. If it's only getting 50% support on one side of the political aisle, the most it can possibly hope to get is 25% overall support at best. Wokeness splits the left and unites the right, and thus it is the very definition of the 80-20 doom loop that the Democrats find themselves trapped in, which means that we can expect to see more and more anti-woke legislation rising up all across the nation. This isn't about politics. It's about protecting our children. This is a victory not just for conservatives, but for children, parents, and the democratic process itself. We are in it, gang. A historic shift is unfolding all around us. The fall of globalism, the rise of a new conservative age, and I explain exactly what's happening and why in my most important book yet, America Awakened. This book gives you the full picture, how we got here, what it means, and what you need to know to be on the right side of history. So don't wait. Go to americaawaken.us and join the early access list today. The next chapter has already begun. Well, gang, as you can see, this is a big day for us, not just for me, but for every courageous patriot who's been standing with us, building the parallel economy and pushing back against the globalist elite that tried to steal our culture, our values, and our nation. Over the years, we have on this channel exposed that corruption. We've laughed at the implosion of wokeness. But the question I keep hearing from so many of you is this: what do we do now? Now that President Trump has won with an overwhelming mandate from the American people, what do we do to continue to rebuild a flourishing American civilization? And that is exactly why I wrote a brand new book. It's in publication as we speak. And this book is a declaration, a rallying cry. It's the answer to the question, what does it look like to rise up and rebuild from the ashes of globalism? And I cannot wait for you to see it because it's more than just a commentary. It's a strategy guide for patriots ready to reclaim their families, their finances, their faith, and their future. And I didn't write it alone. I partnered with someone I deeply respect, a true architect of the movement, an entrepreneurial genius, as I like to call him, Joseph Aaron Giletti. Joe has been a strategic thinker and faithful patriot who helped shape every chapter of this book to make it practical, actionable, and transformational. So today, we're giving you a behind-the-scenes look at the heart, the mission, and the message of this book. So Joe, welcome. It's always great to see you, my friend, not just as a guest, but as a partner in this mission.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Steve. So good to hang out with you today.
Joe was muted there, but maybe we'll edit that part out, but we'll let you guys. This is behind the scenes anyway. Good to see you, big guy.
Yes, good to see you. Well, I want to give honor to you and the movement and all that you did to really help Donald J. Trump get elected, and all the work that you did there, and all the shifting of ideas and beliefs, and really just giving us faith and courage in a really tough time. It got dark there for a while, Dr. Steve, and you were one of the voices that were giving us hope. So thank you for that.
It did. Well, thank you. I think we actually, we met each other probably about four and a half years ago during that dark time. And you brought a lot of hope to my life in terms of the way you have impacted lives and helped people in their financial flourishing and freedom, discovering their better selves, right? Because
Yes.
our financial flourishing is part of an overall faith and family approach to life. And I loved hanging out. We were at the inauguration together.
Yes.
That was the coolest.
Yes.
That was so cool.
Fun.
It was cold, but it was cool.
Yeah. Well, cool is definitely, it would be a light way of saying how cold it was. Yes.
Yeah, it certainly was. That's for sure. But let's dive right in, because when you first sat down to outline your contribution to this book, what was the biggest cultural, spiritual threat you felt we had to address in rebuilding and reclaiming this new golden age of America?
You know, I've been plagued by this idea since I heard it. Do you ever have one of those quotes that you hear someone say and you're just like, you have to pause and just kind of contemplate on it for a while because it has so much to it. Jordan Peterson, I don't even remember who he was talking to or what the interview was, but he said this sentence once, and it's troubled me ever since. And the sentence is this. He said, perception itself is dependent upon what you worship.
Wow.
And he used this illustration. He talked about robotic AI. And by the way, that's a scary thing in the world right now, AI. But nevertheless, robotic AI, I don't know if it's still having this problem, but early on, one of the biggest difficulties they were having with robots is they were able to give robots a camera, Dr. Steve, so that they could see the world, right? It could see the world, but Dr. Peterson was sharing it couldn't perceive appropriately.
Yeah, that's great.
So there's a big distinction between seeing and perceiving. So as an illustration, imagine, Dr. Steve, you're in your house and you're looking out the window, right? And when you look out the window, you see whatever's beautiful in your backyard, and there's really an infinite number of places to look. You don't realize it, but you could look in almost an infinite number of places with just one frame.
Right.
You don't realize you're asking yourself the question, what deserves my attention?
Yeah, nice.
You could look at the garden, or you could look at a flower in the garden. Right. Or you could look at the petal on the flower in the garden, or you could look on the bug on the petal on the flower. You see what I'm saying? It can go deeply in and it can go deeply out. And so where do you decide to focus is not the question of an ability to see. It's a question of what you deem worth looking at.
Yep.
So if you imagine the same scene, and I actually had this happen to me recently when I was looking out my office window. Let's imagine you're looking at the same scene, Dr. Steve, and you're standing near the window, and all of a sudden, a crazed lunatic is running at you with a gun.
Dang.
What will you give attention to?
Right.
And the answer is the lunatic. But why? Right. And the reason why you would give attention to the lunatic is because you value life.
Right.
So perception then is dependent upon what you value the most.
Right.
So the thing that you deem the most valuable in the highest order is what gets your, and I like this word, worship.
Yes.
Your worship.
Yep.
And so Jesus had a sentence, and this has troubled me, and I mentioned this in the book, Dr. Steve. Here's the sentence. He says it to Thomas. He says, "Blessed are those who, having not seen,
yep, believe." Yeah.
Not seen.
Yeah.
And so when you ask me what's the problem in the world, my answer is we have a perception problem, just like AI does.
Wow.
You think, and I'm talking to your audience now, you think oftentimes that you don't see things that God is trying to do in and through your life because you think it's not there because you don't see it.
Right.
But I've learned that many times God has been working all along.
Right.
Even when I don't see him.
Yeah.
I may not have seen him, Dr. Steve, because I was valuing the wrong things.
Wow.
I may not have seen them because I didn't have the right perception. But if I change my values, come on, somebody, if I shift what I value, I'll see things that were seeable all along.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I couldn't see it. I just didn't perceive it because I was worshiping the wrong thing.
Wow.
And so when we talk about a parallel economy, Dr. Steve, some of you in the audience mistakenly are worshiping money.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't see what God's trying to do.
Right.
Some of you are worshiping your comfort zone. Uh-oh, they didn't know they were coming to a sermon today. Right? Some of you are worshiping your comfort zone, so you can't see what God is trying to do. Some of you are worshiping your own preferences, and so you can't see what God is trying to work in your life. That's why Paul said we don't walk by what we see.
Right.
We don't walk by sight, because your perception may be off. But if you'll walk by faith,
right.
if you'll give your if you'll give your preferences over to his principles,
yeah,
your desires over to his divinity, if you'll give your leadership over to your life, you'll see stuff you would have missed.
Wow.
And so is there anybody here in the audience? Give me a yes, give me an amen in the chat if you want to walk by faith, not by sight.
Right. Right.
So the problem that even I am an entrepreneur through and through. My dad was a preacher, you could probably tell. But the biggest problem we're having in society is because what we worship is off, our perception is off.
Yeah. Yep.
And so China will have a perception of how to make the world better, but because they worship communism, what they see is different than what you and I see when we worship the one true God.
Right. Right.
So what do we do? How do we help the world to see differently? But it's not just China. It's not just other countries, Dr. Steve. It's you and me. Mm-hmm. We're not seeing what God is trying to do in us and through us because we've lived our lives and we have our perceptions and we have our beliefs about what's most valuable. And what Dr. Steve is trying to do in this book is wake you up and help you see the possibilities for your life like you've never seen them before. Dude,
that's brilliant, man. That is so brilliant. You know, I've been talking a lot about remythologization. But you put it in such a better way. I mean, you put it in this very clean and accessible way. So I have to come up with remythologization. But I've appealed to Peterson in that, where you cannot. That the brain is inherently religious. There's no way around it. The way the brain functions. It functions according to some kind of mythology, some kind of meta-narrative that defines our lives. Otherwise, we could never order what we're going to perceive in. So if I'm driving down the road and I consider the things in my peripheral vision every bit as important as what's in front of me, I'll crash. The only way I can drive is if I put like you say, these innumerable perceptions all around me in some kind of order. But I can only do that when I have a narrative behind me, some kind of mythos that says it's good for me to get from point A to point B. I want to get to point B in one piece. And so therefore I begin to order what I'm going to pay my attention to. And what always drove me nuts with like Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens or Sam Harris and all that is just how absurdly, how unaware they were that their entire argument was predicated on the notion that atheism is good. We ought to embrace reason. We ought to embrace atheism. They were so imperceptive to the notion that science solves all of our problems and frees us from mythology is a scientific mythology. That's exactly what it is. It's a narrative. It's a meta-narrative that can't be proven.
That's right.
It's a metaphysical bias. Right. And I love what you're saying. And they can't see it precisely because they have the wrong perception to begin with. They don't have the right narrative to begin with. And that's why building a society on faith, family, and freedom in that order is so important.
There is a highest order, to your point.
Right.
There is one that there is a primary at the top of that. And that's why I was so troubled when Jordan Peterson said it's based on what you worship. What gets highest order in your world? And it can't be according to Jesus. It can't be. He said, blessed are those who having not seen.
Right.
yet believe.
Yeah.
You're not going to see it. And so there has to be trust and dependence on something higher. And I mean, obviously the woke cultural agenda has put that either into government or into a truthless, just dysfunctional, all the ideologies that are there, that whatever they are that replace God at the top of that, everything that follows is a result of that lack of perception. And so we need, and here's what I want to invite your audience to do as you prepare to read the book, and as you're wherever you are right now. It's like, let's just start here.
Yeah.
Here it is. You ready? Jesus, you're first.
Wow. Amen.
I worship you. Help me to see what's happening in the world. Help me to see what you're calling me to do. Help me to see what I'm actually capable of. You know, Dr. Steve, I talk to entrepreneurs all over the world. We've helped thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs. And the number one biggest problem on why more creators made in the image of God are not affecting greater change in the world is this. They believe in God. They don't believe in themselves. Here's perception for you. Stop believing what you see and start believing what he said.
Yeah, nice.
And the first thing he told you about you is that you're made to be like him.
Yeah, image
you are
of God.
Made in his image, a creator. And if AI takes all the jobs, God forbid, you are still a creator made in his image. And so you have capacity to create and order the world in another way. As a matter of fact, Dr. Steve, the first thing that God tells, and you just shut me up when you need to, but the first thing that God told Adam and Eve before he put them in the garden, he gave them a 2-part command, and you know it before I say it, but here's what he said. I'm going to put you in this garden. He says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to dress it. I want you to keep it.
Yeah.
Dress in the Hebrew means to embellish and make better. This is
what Abad and Shema.
Yes. Embellish. Yes. And then here's the interesting part. And then he says, keep it.
Yeah.
And I think we've been in a season the last couple of years of trying to, it's interesting to me. God is warning humanity that humanity itself and other forces will be at work to destroy what God has created.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, he gives you the mission to keep it.
Yeah.
You are on security detail.
Yeah.
And I think the last several years have been security detail, where we're trying to defend what is good. But we're in a season right now where now it's time not only to secure, Dr. Steve, but to embellish.
Right.
What can we create while we're at peace, or some semblance of peace?
Yeah.
To make it work.
Yes. Yeah. That's a brilliant segue into what I want to ask you next, because, when I was writing this, I kept coming back to this, and you and I have been talking about this for years, kept coming back to this idea of the rise of the parallel economy, which more and more people are calling now the patriot economy, because it's really going mainstream. I mean, we're kind of at the cutting edge of it, and now it's just completely unleashed. Why do you believe that this concept is not just timely, but essential for patriots in 2025?
When Jesus tells a story, and forgive me for all the biblical examples, but I'm not really.
You never have to ask forgiveness for that.
It's interesting to me in Luke chapter 19, when the disciples asked Jesus what the kingdom looks like, he tells them the story in the parable of the minas. He tells them the story, and he tells the story of a king who's going away and who's going to return. And when he goes away, and he specifically says they thought the kingdom was going to come at this time, so he had to explain to them how to operate until he returns. And here's what he tells them to do. In the King James, the way I used to study it back in the day, it was always
beautiful English. Yeah, that's for
sure. I love the Shakespearean English. But nevertheless, he said he turns to those people that are to be his representatives in the world, and he says, quote, "Occupy till I come."
Yeah.
But as well as I do, most of the later translations don't use the word occupy because it's an old word. In the Greek, the word for occupy literally means trade or do business.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And so that's exactly what they did. They went into the world with what God had given them, and they multiplied. And the interesting thing is, Dr. Steve, as you think about it, if you were to ask, if there was a Democrat king and you asked them how to get more power, the Democrat king would say something like, he would say, give everybody free stuff.
Or take everybody's stuff, right? Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like you get a car, everybody gets a car. It reminds me of the Obama times. It's like just trying to give everything to everybody and whatever. But nevertheless, It's like, okay, great. That's one way. But here's the thing. If you try and become a leader by giving stuff away for free, then your loyalty is always for sale.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh, wow.
That's not what the king did in Luke 19. What the king did in Luke 19 is he told servants to go do business, to trade. And they did. Here's the interesting thing, Dr. Steve. They did, most of them, except for the man with one minus, did such a good job multiplying. Listen to what happens to them when they multiply. This is so fascinating to me. I've never heard anybody kind of break this down. Here's what happens. For example, the man with 10, he goes from 1 to 10. He now has 10. He says, well done, good and faithful servant. And then watch what he does. He says, and under the joy of the Lord, he said, give unto him 10 cities. And it's like, wait, he did business and multiplied money. And when the master saw his capability to multiply money, he gave him influence.
Yeah. Wow.
Leadership.
Wow.
And so I believe, based on this principle, that a reason that we should be so actively pursuing what you're calling a patriot economy is because God has called us as people of faith to do business in the world so well that we get so good at it that we become people of influence in the world and can stand as influential representatives of the king and his kingdom.
Wow.
That's God's calling. That's why I believe it's so important.
You know, that's gold right there. I mean, and you know, behind the scenes, you brought a lot of entrepreneurial and movement building experience into this whole process. I mean, that you eat, sleep, and drink that. Can you share how patriots should take this time to build businesses? What I love about you, Joe, and what you gave me a passion for, is that don't settle with, I think it's called the competency crisis, you know, where you become competent in something and then you kind of build your world around that. And then you're stuck and you can't break out of that competency crisis. And the way you do it, and again, I learned this from you, is you learn new competencies. You're always building, you're always learning, you're always expanding. You don't stop. So can you share how patriots should be taking this time to build businesses of their own?
I love that. And I love what you said about building skills, because again, I'm going to show you something ancient and something modern now. On the ancient side,
that's archaeofuture. I love it. Yeah.
Ooh, archaeofuture. I'm in. So the ancient principle is, funny enough, the other parable, the parable of the talents, not the minus. Jesus tells the same story in Matthew 25 with talents. It's a little bit different. And it says he gave to each according to their. So how do they have more to multiply more? In other words, how do they have access to more resources? And he answers that in the text. He says he gave to each according to their ability, right. So there's another principle. Like, what you have access to is dependent on your abilities. And so if you want more influence, if you want more resources to affect more change and impact more people, then grow your abilities, and your resources will follow.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, that's the archeo. You're going to have to remind me of the future word. That's the archeo. But the future is this. It has never been easier.
Yes.
I'm going to say that again for the doubters in the crowd. It has never been easier. Okay? Now, my kids, Dr. Steve, who are all entrepreneurs, are not allowed to say the following words. I don't know how.
Wow.
Because it's one of the dumbest things that you could possibly say in the 21st.
Not in the information age. Absolutely.
And it used to be Google meant I don't know how. But now it ain't even that, right? You can just go to AI and ask. It will give you step by step, click by click. And if you're good enough, they got agents who will actually do all the things.
Do it for you.
That's not physical. Right. So there's no longer an excuse to say, I don't know how. It's literally one sentence typed into a computer away from you knowing how to do it. The issue isn't, do I know how? The issue isn't, can I get the skills? The issue is the same thing we started this whole thing with, Dr. Steve. Here's the issue. Do you believe?
Wow. Cool.
That's the issue. And if you believe, I know you believe, you will know them by their fruits.
Yeah.
And so I want to free everyone from feeling like you need to be an expert or that you need a PhD or you need an MBA or you need any of that kind of stuff. Some of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world right now didn't even graduate high school. And that's not to it. I'm a fan of education, okay? Especially classical education, which my children all experience thanks to Dr. Steve. But nevertheless, to be effective in business, it's just not a requirement anymore. It just takes action.
Yes. Wow. It's so interesting you say. I heard somebody put it this way, Joe. We're moving from the information age to the intelligence age. So in other words, we're not so much responsible for having to garner, find, research, and synthesize all the information. It's already there through these AI. I mean, through super intelligences. Now we just simply need to learn how to harness it and use it in such a way that maximizes our human flourishing. So we don't have to worry about becoming experts anymore. We got one literally at the tip of our fingers. Super experts at literally everything. And now it's just learning how to harness that online. And so the opportunities are enormous. I love that you did what you just did there, sir, is the quintessential archaeo-future analysis. That is
no one has ever called me quintessential
modern.
Yes, thank you. And, and I want to say one other thing to the importance. You got to get this book. You got to get awakened. And the reason is this. I personally, and I don't know if this is true or not, but if you listen to some of the smartest minds in the world who are working in AI, I am personally extremely concerned that we are approaching sometime in the next 2 years, 25+% unemployment rate.
Wow.
And by the way, the last time there was 25% unemployment was the Great Depression.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so what does that mean? Why does that make this book all that much more important? Because you need to get started now. And know it now, because what most of these, deca billionaires who are creating AI are telling us is that the world is moving towards entrepreneurship. So learn the skills now so that you have a safe haven. Because there's so many simple, this doesn't have to be a tech business. It's simple, like easy, local businesses can be run by AI and a couple of teenage kids who are willing to drive around and deliver stuff or whatever. So it's unbelievable what's possible now. Don't allow your fear or your discomfort to hold you back, because the world needs leaders. And I'm praying to God that he rises up Christian, passionate, patriotic leaders that are going to hold to the ideals that we've been fighting for hundreds of years here in America, and for the purpose of Christianity, of course, for thousands of years.
Well, what do you, as we wrap it up here, what do you hope the legacy of this book is? It sounds like you're starting to really move into that. So if a father, a homeschool mom, small business owner picks this up, 5 years from now, what do you hope they take away from that?
I hope it wakes them up. I hope they look back to this book and say, if I wouldn't have read that book, I don't know what would have happened. Wow. Or if I wouldn't have read that book, I wouldn't be in the place that I'm in now. There's danger around the corner. And I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to tell you what I believe to be true. There's danger around the corner, but even if I'm wrong and there isn't danger around the corner because of unemployment and AI, there's an unprecedented opportunity. So whether it's the carrot or the stick, wake up and fulfill God's calling on your life to be an influential leader in the world. And this book will be your wake-up call for that.
Yeah, gang, this is it. Seriously, this book isn't just ink on paper. It's a battle plan. We're living in a time where the old systems are collapsing, woke corporations are crumbling, trust in legacy media is an all-time low and getting lower, and the old globalist order is just gasping for breath. But the good news, the wonderful news is our side is rising. Joe and I didn't write this book just to inform you. We wrote it to ignite you, to give you the tools, the vision, the strategies that you need to build a life of freedom, purpose, and legacy. So here's what I want you all to do. Just click the link below to join our waitlist and secure your pre-order access now. There you are. You guys are the first to see the cover of this book. It's not even in actuality yet, but if you click on that link below, you're going to be the first to get it. So whether you're a small business owner, a homeschool parent, pastor, or just someone who's just tired of feeling powerless, or you just feel like you're stuck in life, this book is your invitation to join a growing army of courageous patriots who are done waiting and ready to act. So click on that link below, sign up, and I can't wait for you guys to read that book, and we'll interact with it. And hopefully this is going to make 2025 literally a whole new year for you. So Joe, dude, thank you so much for agreeing to help out with the book. Thanks for all that you do to build up a civilization of flourishing faith, family, and freedom. I know your purpose statement. You've told it to me several times, but I know at the heart of it involves movements that matter, and you're changing the world one movement at a time.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be with you. God bless.
It's an honor to be with you. God bless you, man. But first, while the corrupt federal elites have been quietly building wealth through cryptocurrency, hardworking American patriots have been left behind. But there's an amazing solution. I want to tell you about Block Trust IRA. They're bringing access to cryptocurrency wealth to real Americans. You all know I'm a big fan of crypto. It's supercharging President Trump's America First economic miracle, and now you can be a part of it. I partnered with Block Trust IRA because their mission perfectly aligns with President Trump's Make America Great Again agenda, smashing down the barriers between loyal patriots and the financial freedom they deserve. Their Animus AI trading platform works 24/7, analyzing market data and executing advanced crypto strategies that are beyond simply buy and hold, helping true American patriots build impressive wealth in Trump's historic economic boom. There's a reason their system was named the #1 crypto technology platform by Bitcoin Magazine from over 1,500 global competitors. Whether you're a teacher, truck driver, small business owner, or retiree watching inflation eat away your 401k, Block Trust IRA's advanced Animus AI gives red-blooded Americans the same advantages as those coastal elites. Now, right now, their clients, get this, are seeing over 250% returns on their investments. Yes, you heard that right. 250% returns. And with military-grade security, investments are protected by up to $200 million in insurance. So what are you waiting for? Visit TurleyTalksCrypto.com and find out how they can help you join the Trump Crusade financial revolution that's finally giving forgotten Americans access to the greatest crypto wealth opportunity in history. For a limited time, they're offering my viewers, get this, up to $2,500 in bonus crypto when you open an account with them. This is so amazing. Do not wait on this. Crypto created 80,000 new millionaires last year. Why not you next? Visit TurleyTalksCrypto.com. That's TurleyTalksCrypto.com, making retirement great again. All right, the hotline time, 717-844-5984. You can call that number, leave any question that you like, and try to keep it under 30 seconds. And if we like it, we're going to feature it on one of these Tuesday night and Thursday night episodes. So let's hear, Micah, our first question. I think we only have one queued for tonight, so let's hear it.
Dr. Steve, this is Roger Davenport. I just was going to tell you, you're killing me, Smalls. You were cracking me up in this latest episode about how you were describing the so-called tiff between Elon and Trump. Like Elon thought he was going to take on Trump and come out on top of that one. At best, he would have swung less than 1% of the vote. I'm talking total vote, not just our side of the vote. I'm talking total vote in the whole country. Maybe 1% if you put it that way. Anyway, I was laughing so hard. This is better than the first time I listened to try to figure out who's on first. And Elon is the poor guy on first trying to figure out what's going on. So, like, he really thought that Donald Trump, the biggest real estate mogul in the world ever, wouldn't have an exit plan when he lets people like Leon. Yeah, he runs his mouth for eons. Trump had a way to get rid of him. he wouldn't go into something like that with a guy like crazy Elon, knowing he has Asperger's, and without having an exit strategy. Anyway, I just thought it was funny. The whole thing, that's what I predicted to a friend of mine that is convinced that Trump is the physical embodiment of the Antichrist, and they were all being deceived instead of wising up a little bit. Anyway, won't keep any longer. If you do decide to use any of my comments, or hopefully all of them, let me know what. Well, I need a job. Not really. I've got a very successful business, so I'm unemployable. Anyway, as you found out recently about yourself. Anyway, no, I would like to know what episode, so I don't miss it. I don't miss many of your episodes, but that would be the one. All right, thanks. Keep doing what you're doing. Bye.
That'd be the one I messaged you and I together. That's exactly right. The one I think I wrote in once to Bill O'Reilly when he did his comments at the end, and I would usually watch him at 8:00 at night on Fox years ago when I was a teacher, and then one day I went into school and everyone's like, "Hey, you were on Bill O'Reilly last night." I was like, "I was," and so they read out one of my questions. Steve from Newark, Delaware. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Elon has since calmed down. I don't know what got him so riled up, but he was clearly not perceiving reality, which is rare because somebody of his entrepreneurial caliber, and he's on top of the world when that comes to entrepreneurial caliber. You have to obviously have accurate perception of what millions upon millions of people want. But when it came to politics, he just simply didn't have that. So he kind of, looking back, and they're friends now again, thank God for that. I'm glad, because they're stronger together, obviously. They represent the tech trad alliance, Trump and Elon, where Silicon Valley is uniting with social conservatives in their fight against the woke threat to thriving civilization. They both very much care about the degrading demographics that we're seeing, the fertility winter that we're seeing. They care very much about an optimistic conception of society. They believe we're here for a purpose, that life is not inherently meaningless, and so there's a lot of overlap between the tech side, the tech right, as they're called, and the trad right. And they really do form this archaeo-future coalition that goes, all the way back to someone like Nikolai Fyodorov in the 19th century, the Russian Orthodox mystic who foresaw the Christian faith moving into this tech trad alignment, something akin to what Guillaume Fay was arguing for in the early 1990s when he talked about archaeo-future society, where tradition and technology would actually, and religion and science would work in tandem together, kind of like the Star Wars cosmovision. That's very, very technological, but also incredibly mystical and religious, and has monastics and the like. So I'm glad they're back together, but yeah, Elon he kind of backed himself into a corner. He couldn't, when he was in his rift with Trump, he couldn't go to the Democrats because the whole point of the rift was there was too much spending in Washington. So going and aligning himself with the Democrats would involve aligning himself with those who are spenders par excellence. I mean, they spend on steroids. They make Republican spending look mild by comparison. So he couldn't go there. Of course, he hates wokeness, and yet the Democrats are doubling down on wokeness. So he couldn't go to the Democrat Party. So he obviously said, all right, maybe I'll just start a third party that he said represents the 80%. But the problem there is that is Donald Trump. I think, just like you said, very perceptively, that is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a third-party candidate who received a major party nomination. And as such, he was able to effectively, at least to an extent, recalibrate the Republican Party into the new political divide, which is no longer horizontal, left versus right. It is now vertical. It's the people versus the political class. The 80% is war versus the 20%. It's not a 50-50 divided nation. It's an 80-20. Again, the politics of that is still working itself out. But Trump has already tapped into the 80-20 divide. So you're exactly right. When, who was it that did? Was it YouGov? I'm trying to remember who did the poll of Republicans. Who do you stand with in this rift? And over 70%, if I recall, 71, 72% said, oh, we're 100% with Trump. 6%, and these are Republicans, 6% at most went with Elon. So I think that translates exactly in sort of the 1%, aggregate demographic that you're talking about in terms of the support he could get. So no, that's the thing. Trump has already tapped into the 80%. So in the end, Elon had nowhere to go. It was a bizarre rift. I don't know why he got so upset with Trump. I don't know why he went to DEFCON 5 and started bringing the Epstein files and, all that kind of going ballistic on Trump. But he had nowhere to go. He couldn't go to the Democrats and he couldn't go to a third party because Trump is already, he's already occupied that territory as being the third party candidate, getting a major party nomination. So I think your analysis is right on. It was a real waste of time of Elon. I think he ended up killing off just a lot of his cred. I think it's coming back, but obviously he tanked his stock. The gains that Tesla had made over the last few months just got tanked in a single afternoon. And hopefully I don't want to sound, condescending here, but hopefully, he learned his lesson that the politics is a tricky thing. And it's different. It's a different animal than entrepreneurship. I mean, again, entrepreneurship involves politics, but just raw public policy politics is a different animal. And hopefully, he's learned how to navigate that far more effectively because he's wonderful, and I want to see him. Succeed. So with that, gang, wonderful program, and I will see you bright and early tomorrow for our live stream Friday. God bless, guys.